This is the story of how one woman veteran blazed a trail into the U.S. Air Force and then beyond. Today's story is called Return to Flight.
Season 4 of the story features 8 veteran trailblazers whose sacrifices and service changed the world. The story is brought to you exclusively by Salesforce, the world's #1 customer relationship management platform. More than 150,000 businesses are using Salesforce to blaze their own trails to success. You can learn more by clicking the link in our show notes. And now, on to the story.
The girl's big dream started the moment she read about the Project Gemini astronauts in a junior Scholastic magazine. The Gemini crew was pioneering the space travel techniques that would later be used to land astronauts on the moon. The girl soaked up the backgrounds of astronauts like John Young and Virgil Grissom, and she decided she wanted to be one of them. But big dreams aren't always welcome, so she never uttered a word about her ambitions to anyone. She had already heard no, or you can't do that, anytime she tried to do something new. The girl grew up in New York State. She was a child of immigrants who sometimes used welfare and food stamps to provide for their family. Although the pressures of providing for their family were intense, her parents loved and encouraged their children. Her father encouraged his kids to learn about the world. He would pile his kids into the car and drive to the nearby airport. There, they would all sit on the hood and watch planes take off. Those fond memories of family life would help keep her going when her parents separated when she was only 9. Suddenly, her dream seemed out of reach, and getting there might be harder than she thought. Her parents didn't have any money for college or flying lessons. Rather than grow disappointed, it just made the young girl more determined to figure it out on her own. Her fascination with flight and space drove her to learn mathematics, logic, science, and economics. But the numbers, theories, and models were not enough. She needed to fly. Posters of astronauts and the Earth from space hung on her wall. They kept her going, but she wanted to see the Earth from space for herself. So she worked like crazy to make it happen. In high school, she worked nights and weekends at a pizza place to save up money for flying lessons. She didn't take her first flight lesson until age 19, and that only stoked her desire to fly even more. Finally, she had enough money for flight lessons. She drove to the small airport near her home and signed up. She thought they might give her a hard time for being a girl, but nobody said a word. And soon, she was in the air. After she got her pilot's license, she was accepted into the U.S. Air Force undergraduate pilot training program. She was one of 4 women in the program. After 1 year of training, she became the first female flight instructor for the Air Force. Next, she taught flying and mathematics at the Air Force Academy. It was a high-stakes environment, but she held her own. It was there that she developed a reputation for being cool, calm, and level-headed under pressure. The accolades she earned mounted, and she still kept her ultimate goal a secret. She was going to find a way to get into outer space. Eventually, she had the credentials and the nerve to ask her commanding officer to recommend her to the space program. When she made her request, she held her breath and waited for the no. But it never came. His response was quick and resounding. "I think you'd make a great astronaut." The year was 1990, and her work and vision was paying off. One day at work, a call came through for her. She picked up the phone. A voice on the other end said, "You've been selected to go through NASA's pilot training program." She couldn't believe it. The years of dreaming, curiosity, and hard work were paying off. Astronaut training was beyond intense. Later, she would look back on it and reflect that we obviously were living in a fishbowl. Everyone knew who we were, our personal business, our test scores, and our flight performance. My philosophy was to be the best pilot I could be, to stay focused, not engage, or get involved in social things or anything that wasn't directly contributing to the mission. If the first woman did poorly, that could have caused the cancellation of the program. She went on to ace classes on space, weather, medicine, and mechanics. The pilots spent hours in the simulator, facing practice launches and surprise malfunctions. They had seconds to make life or death decisions. The next 4 years were filled with training and waiting for her chance. By 1995, she had risen to the rank of colonel and became the first woman ever to pilot the space shuttle. The world celebrated.
Please be seated and welcome to the White House and the Roosevelt Room.
First Lady Hillary Clinton commented that
occasion in the White House that gives me more personal pleasure than this announcement. In December 1998, when the shuttle Columbia takes off, we'll take one big step forward for women and one giant leap for humanity.
Soon, her first real-world mission arrived.
T-minus 30 seconds.
She strapped into the pilot's seat of the Discovery space shuttle. It was the first flight of the new joint Russian-American space program, designed to foster collaboration instead of competition amongst the two nations. It wasn't long before she sat on the launch pad, and the 10-second countdown began.
11, 10, 9,
Her pulse quickened, and she felt the adrenaline rush through her.
5,
At T-minus 6 seconds, the engines
We
lit.
have a go for engine start. 0. We have booster ignition and liftoff, reaching new heights for women in X-ray astronomy.
The boosters roared, and after a few more seconds, they had liftoff.
In the roll, we've got a fuel cell PH number 1.
The shuttle shook. Beads of sweat formed on her face.
DC bus sensors off.
Space Shuttle Discovery shot into the sky, and she felt the G-forces push her back into her seat.
Now headed downrange, altitude 3.8 miles. And as
Minutes later, the shuttle pierced through the thin exosphere. Her arms felt light, and she realized she was experiencing real zero gravity for the first time. No more simulations, no more vomit comet. This was the real deal. She was in space. Space Shuttle Discovery completed its routine inspections and maintenance to the International Space Station. She safely piloted the crew in, landed the shuttle, and the mission was a success. After the mission, she took time off to have her first child, a baby girl named Bridget. 2 years later, she piloted another mission, this time with Space Shuttle Atlantis. And 2 years after that, she broke another barrier when she was named the first female shuttle commander. In between, when she was preparing for her last mission, catastrophe struck. Her next mission was only 4 weeks away from launch when the tragedy happened. Another space shuttle, Columbia, had malfunctioned and disintegrated upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. The entire crew was killed. All the astronauts had been close friends with her, and the loss hit close to home. Now, it wasn't just any mission she was commanding. She was tasked with the return to flight mission. It would be the first mission after the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. Reporters hounded her about the launch. They asked if she felt fear, uncertainty, or doubt. They reminded her that the future of manned spaceflight rested on the success of her mission. When they bombarded her with questions, in her cool, calm, collected manner, she responded, "We are staying focused on the mission, and we know we are in good hands with the people on the ground." Her final mission began, and soon the 14-day mission was 13 days in without a hitch. The last challenge was to land safely. But a raging storm at Kennedy Space Center in Florida caused NASA to change plans. The landing was diverted to Edwards Air Force Base in California for a night landing. She adjusted accordingly and prepared to land at night in the new location. Prior to the mission, she had received words of encouragement from female pilots around the world. After the tragedy of Columbia, the whole world suddenly became morbidly interested in space. Now they were all watching.
Houston, Clay in sight.
Roger, runway in sight.
She knew she had one shot.
Moves in sight of the runway. Now aligning with the center of runway 33.
And the public sentiment towards the space program was in her and her crew's hands.
Altitude 5,000 feet.
She thought back to all the time she had spent with her friends and fellow astronauts that had been killed in the Columbia disaster.
4,000 feet.
She decided that their deaths would not be in vain.
2,000 feet.
The shuttle began their final descent.
Altitude now 1,000 feet.
They were approaching at 25 times the speed of sound, or 18,000 miles per hour.
Commander Eileen Collins guiding onto the shuttle landing facility runway.
The ground below whizzed by as she slowed them down.
Speed 390 miles per hour.
The blue lights lining the runway loomed larger in the night.
Landing gears down and locked. Touchdown, main gear touchdown.
Houston, wheel stop.
Roger, Real Stop. Welcome home. Eileen, to you and the crew, just an outstanding job deploying Chandra.
And Space Shuttle Discovery touched down on runway 22. The crowd cheered, and NASA employees shared hugs of joy. Later, a reporter asked a NASA spokesperson, what led to the success of the mission? What was it that made everything go so smoothly? The NASA official replied, there isn't any of this that is easy, but Colonel Eileen Collins made it look like a cakewalk. As the first woman to pilot and command a space shuttle, Eileen Collins blazed a trail for others to follow. Colonel Collins never wavered in the face of adversity or challenge or hardship, from the time she was a young girl to the moment she completed her 4th mission into space. The training required to reach your dreams might take decades to complete. Maybe your dreams are so big that, like Colonel Collins, you don't tell anyone around you right away. Maybe you'll have to patiently build the courage and discipline required to achieve them painstakingly over years. That's okay. If your dreams are worthy, if they blaze a trail for others to follow, then maybe we have a duty to accomplish them. Maybe you have a duty to go for them. After all, if humanity will become a spacefaring species, if we're going to future-proof our civilization here on Earth, we all need to dream bigger. We have a duty to do it for ourselves, our families, and for future generations not yet born. That's her story. What's yours going to be?
Thanks for listening to The Story. If you love this and want more, tap subscribe to make sure you don't ever miss an episode. The Story is brought to you exclusively by Salesforce, the world's #1 customer relationship management platform. More than 150,000 businesses are using Salesforce to blaze their own trails to success. The Story is created by The Mission, a veteran-owned media company and podcast network. We create custom branded podcasts for world-class companies like Salesforce, Twilio, and Katera. To learn more, head over to themission.co and subscribe to our daily newsletter.